Is the mic on? It's on. Good. So we're a small enough group that we don't really need to be, mic'd with slides tonight, but we wanted this to be available for people who were not able to attend in person this evening. So it's being recorded, and if you want to hear my voice a second time, you can go on YouTube within the week and find that recording. All right, so a quick overview of where we're headed this evening. Next slide. Can you read that? I barely can. But you're going to learn just a little bit about the history and development of OWL, a little bit more about each level of OWL that's offered, and you're going to hear some next steps. And then after the formal presentation, we'll stick around for another half hour until 8 o'clock, and you can look through some of the curriculum materials and supportive materials that would be made available to you. They'll be at the tables where we had been eating pizza prior to this. And we are available for any questions that you may have. A little bit more about who we are after an opening reflection. So this reflection was written by Seth Carrier Ladd, and it is called Embodiment and Sexuality. May we find appreciation tonight and in our lives for our embodiment. We are physical creatures, mind, spirit, and soul housed within our bodies. Our bodies, our physical form, allow us to experience the world. Taste, chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven. Touch, the warmth and smoothness of a baby's skin. Sight, the blossoming colors of sunrise and sunset. Sound, the laughter of friends and family. Smell, the aroma of fresh-baked bread. And for this particular hour, may we find gratitude for our sexuality. May we be grateful for and appreciate our gender identity, our sexual orientation, our physical selves. May we appreciate the pleasure, the intimacy, the connection that comes with and is part of our sexuality. May we also remember that for many, sexuality can bring a variety of emotions: shame, sadness, trauma, anger, pain, and hurt. For all the joy and goodness that embodiment brings, it also has its challenges: aching joints, long-term health conditions, severe illness, and more. Tonight, as we honor the whole of ourselves, we also honor the whole spectrum of sexual experience, holding the joys in all their richness and the sorrows in all their fullness in our hearts. And after that grounding reflection, now it's time to introduce ourselves. So my name is Stephanie Gronholtz, and I'm the religious education specialist here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. I'm also the parent of an 11-year-old boy who's participated in OWL, and you'll hear a little bit more about that experience of mine later on in the presentation.
And I'm Phyllis Thayer, and I have been involved with comprehensive sexuality education since probably the mid-'80s. OWL came along in the mid-'90s in its development and came on board around 2001. So it's been around for a while, but still not everybody has heard about it. So we're here to help that out.
And I'm Marianne Winiford. Phyllis and I are actually members of the other UU church in town, Inland Northwest Unitarian Universalist Community, INUUC. I am the parent of Katie, who went through the program, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experiences. And I'm also kind of trying to head up this restarting of OWL in Spokane.
And I am so grateful for these two women because, I work at the church, right? Like, it's literally my job to respond to these requests for OWL. But Phyllis and Marianne are volunteering hours and hours of their time because they're so passionate about comprehensive sexuality education for the people of Spokane. So join me in a little round of applause for them, because truly, it is a team effort, and I am relying so much on their experience as mothers and facilitators and people who know the OWL program deeply. So thank you to both of you. So before we talk a little bit more about the OWL program itself, I'd like to prompt you with a couple of reflective questions. Think about how you learned about your body and sexuality. Was it the talk? Was it a lot of talks over many years? Were there no talks? Was there a book or a movie? And then consider who taught you. Was it your friends or parents, another family member? If you're younger than me, was it the internet? So think about that. And you can keep those thoughts to yourself, but I'm also going to give you 2 minutes where you can process that with someone near you if you'd like. So 2 minutes to share any thoughts that you have about these 2 reflective prompts. Well, thank you for sharing with one another. This is the kind of topic that you could spend many evenings talking through, right? This is why OWL exists, because everybody has a story about these questions, about these prompts, and they're worth sharing as we discover ourselves. I'm going to pass it off next to Phyllis, who has been involved in OWL for almost as long as I've been alive. I mean, this is truly, you are getting information from an expert who is so well-versed in the origins and development of OWL. So she's going to share a little bit more with you about that now.
Thanks, Stephanie. I do not claim to be an expert in this. I am still learning, and I think that's one of the fun things about it, is we can continue all our lives to learn. The UUA, back in the mid-'80s, developed a program called About Your Sexuality. It was the precursor to OWL, but it was geared toward just the 7th through 9th, and it quickly became dated. We used actual photographs for some of the illustrations, so we were struggling with it. We tried at the church I was at in Kalamazoo to try and teach it to senior high, and it was just not flying very well because they were past some of that information, or they thought they were. So in the mid-90s, the Unitarian Universalists, which had About Your Sexuality, and the United Church of Christ, which had a sexuality program, got together and said, we need to do something to update what we have, and we also need to cover our whole lives. So that's where OWL came from, Our Whole Lives, Sexuality Education. And as this slide shows, the initial step is to try and develop a curriculum, and we consulted sexuality educators across the country and tried to find out what's appropriate at what age levels. And we would do field testing, very extensive field testing, and then we would get feedback from the churches that were trying it, and then it would go into training for the facilitators for that appropriate age level. And then eventually, we are now doing a lot of revamping of some of the curricula and updating things. So it's a constant cycle. Each time we update a curriculum, we're going to do more field testing. And as a matter of fact, right now they're field testing, a nationwide field testing for the young adults, which are 18 to 35 year age range. So it's very well crafted so that it's got the most current information. It's trying to be as open and accepting as they can be, which fits our values as Unitarian Universalists and United Church of Christ as well. So the OWL program, as you can see, covers K1, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, and then 3 adult curricula. Interestingly, they started with just 1 adult curriculum, and they felt that it was beneficial to younger and older adults to hear what everybody had to say. So there was an argument to have just this 1 curriculum. And then the young people kind of rebelled and said, no, we want our own, and some of us are starting to become parents. We need, something more focused on our age range. And traditionally, young adults are considered to be, in our church, considered to be 18 through 35. So they wrote their own curriculum. And then we ended up, somebody said, well, what about older adults? Older adults may be starting to date again. They need information on safe sex and the values that may be placed on aging adults and involvement in sexuality. So that's where we're at. We've got 7 curricula, and we'd like to see them all offered here in Spokane. And it's really nice that we can collaborate with UUCS and find the populations that we need. And I talked to a couple people earlier. That's one reason we're doing this, is to determine where the real interest lies. Should we focus on elementary? Should we focus on adults? And so you will help us make those determinations. I think that's all.
You get to stay to talk about
Okay, you are going to, or you want me to? Okay. Okay. The next slide.
I will interrupt real briefly. I forgot to say this at the beginning. If you have a clarifying question, don't be afraid to raise your hand. Like, what does that acronym mean? Or could you repeat that? If you have a clarifying question, please interrupt and ask. If you have a longer question or a more personalized question, those are the kind of questions we can save for the end. The other interruption I have is you might be wondering, do I need to be a member of INUUC or UUCS or the United Church of Christ? And you don't to participate in OWL. It's open to the community. So I thought we should clarify that.
Good.
Yeah. Are there any other clarifying questions at this point before Phyllis continues? All right. I'm a trained educator, so wait time is the thing that I do. All right. I'll let Phyllis continue to talk about elementary OWL.
Just before I start that, I'd like to say that each of the 7 curricula that we have a parent orientation prior to the class starting. And that is to inform the parent of what exactly is going to be talked about. They get to look at the curriculum, which you can do anytime. At either of our churches, those curricula are available for people to review. So we do a parent orientation, and that's important to have sign off both on you're accepting the curriculum that we're going to teach the kids, but also that you are committed to the time that is required. Because some of them, like the 7 through 9, go for months. And we need people to, work with their kids and get them there on a regular basis. Now, most often, once they get in the classroom and see the open discussions and the learning opportunities, they're hooked and they want to come on Sunday mornings or Sunday evenings or middle of the week, depending on when the classes are offered. So it pretty much sells itself, but we do need that commitment from parents. Secondly, we'll always talk about OWL program values, and I think you have a handout for that, right?
There's a brochure.
Okay, a brochure back here that talks about the OWL program values, but basically it talks about self-worth, sexual health, responsibility, and justice and inclusivity. So as you might guess, it's pretty comprehensive in presenting the program. And then we talk about circles of sexuality, and there's a handout back there for that. And the idea is that we're sexual from the time we're born till the time we die. There are many aspects to sexual health. It's not just the reproductive health that most children will get sometime in their school classes, but it talks about sensuality, it talks about some abusive situations that may occur and helping people understand that. So it's again an aspect to OWL programs that we use for all levels, and obviously it would shift some from K1 to what adults might be talking about, but the basics are all the same. Okay, so in K1, we really want to talk about bodies and their parts. We want to talk about accurate scientific names and not just whatever they might have learned from their friends or from family. We talk about personal safety. That's a real important time for kids to know good touch from bad touch and when to say, don't kiss me or don't hug me. And Then we talk about the diversity of families and how different families are organized. You might have two moms or two dads. You might just have one parent. And then we'll talk about where babies come from. And I think I heard from some of you that that was a question that was coming up already. So that's a fun class to teach. And then 4th through 6th grade, we get a little bit more detailed in introducing gender identification, the changes that they're going to face in puberty, the feelings that they might have, sexual feelings that they might have, attractions that they might have, and then more on staying healthy and dealing with reproduction and the facts of that. So that's the elementary.
Yeah, so Phyllis knows OWL so well and was in fact my son's OWL teacher. Was it 5 years ago? It was pre-pandemic, so who knows what year it would have been. Yes, when my son was in 1st grade, and I am so grateful that he had the experience of doing OWL. We had just started attending church, and I learned just a little bit about OWL and signed him up right away because I knew that he needed the kind of education that I did not get as a young child. Honestly, I can say the word sex in front of a group of adults because of OWL. Prior to kind of that word being normalized in my family, it was just kind of uncomfortable and like, oh, I don't know, what do we do? But because my son talked so freely about sexuality using those anatomically correct words, he knew the difference between a girl body and a boy body in a really age-appropriate way. It just opened up the conversation in our family. And he hasn't had any official OWL experiences since then. He's in 6th grade right now. But I feel like the conversational gates were opened because of that experience in 1st grade. And now that he is in middle school, and we'll be delving into some more complicated and potentially more uncomfortable topics for his parents, like the trust has been established, and he knows that he can come to us as that source of information, and that if we don't have the answers, we'll find out and come back to him with accurate, trustworthy information. So that was my experience as a parent of OWL. He liked going to the classes. He always looked forward to the snacks, like most 1st graders, right? And he really did, I think, form a connection with Phyllis and her co-facilitator, Barb. And my son was kind of a handful, energetic. We'll just say he was energetic. And they just handled his energy so well and funneled it in all the right ways in his OWL K1 experience. So next up would be Marianne to talk a little bit more about secondary OWL, which includes 7 through 9 and 10 through 12.
So even though I was a UU and raised my kids in the UU church, my church did not have the elementary level OWLs when I was in Boulder, Colorado. Well, go figure, why not Boulder? So we didn't hear about it until we moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, which is extremely conservative, and I was really, really glad they had it. Their school education was strictly just say no, abstinence is the only way. I don't even know if they talked about anything beyond body parts. I don't really know. So my kids went through both the 7 through 9 and the 10 through 12 OWL. And 7 through 9 is a long curriculum because that's when everything is really coming up. I mean, we want to think that our kids don't get sexual until they're in high school, but that's not really true. And they're certainly learning about it and talking about it before that. So in 7 through 9, we're talking about sexual orientation. And we start into the real relationship skills, which was part of what I found so valuable as a parent, that my kids were learning how to negotiate a sexual relationship or just a loving relationship. What does it look like? What do healthy relationships look like? various sexual behaviors. We cover the gamut. There's gay and straight presenters. We have diagrams of people with disabilities. Everybody has a sexual behavior. It doesn't matter what your body is like. And then they spend a lot of time on sexually transmitted diseases and various ways to avoid pregnancy, as you would hope. And then the 10 through 12 was really interesting to me. It talked about body image for both boys and girls. There's so much pressure in our society about how you should look. And people don't look that way. And, that every body is a lovely body. How to make responsible choices about your partners and the activities that you partake in. Communicating what you want and what you don't want with your partners, or acquiring or getting rid of partners. That's also part of it. And power and control is such. I didn't think about that at all when I was in high school. I experienced it most definitely, but I didn't think about it in that kind of terms. And I think it really helped kind of open up my kids' understanding of what does this behavior mean? This is a control. This is a power play. This is not, this is not normal. This is not what I need to participate in. My daughter Katie went through the program, and she's going to talk a little bit about being in it, what it was like.
When I was in 6th grade, I started that very conservative abstinence-only school program in gym class, and it was bad. I mean, they were telling us that we could get crabs in a tongue ring and then bugs would grow in your mouth. They put tape on a boy's arm as his girlfriend and ripped it off to show us that she was dirty and nobody else wanted her. Meanwhile, my friends had a different kind of misinformation. People were starting to look at porn, and everybody was sure they understood everything and wanted to tell everybody else about it. And you weren't sure if you believed them, but you weren't sure if they didn't. And if you had a question, you went to Google. So there's a lot of misinformation at that age, and you can't talk to your parents about it because, firstly, that would be awkward, but also you'd have to admit that you didn't know something, and that's hard at that age. So it meant a lot to have an adult that I trusted not to lie to me, to ask my questions and talk about stuff. And it was kind of fun. I got to go with friends and kids my own age, and we were going to talk about sex, and that was embarrassing, but also fun. And we talked about the anatomy stuff and the puberty stuff, but we also talked about things like sex should feel good, even if you're a girl, and your partner shouldn't always assume that you're in the mood, even if you're a boy. We talked about a lot of things, and it really influenced my relationship with my body and my sexuality, and in a time when I was really developing those things, and it was very important to me growing up. So I would recommend it.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to say is that there are activities every single session. I only know what they were doing, putting condoms on cucumbers and, just all kinds of things to make it active and interactive and fun. It's not all lecture and it's not all squirmy, let's look at these slides. Oh my God, there's fun activities too. I think in all the grades. I didn't teach the younger kids yet. All right, next slide.
Don't want to forget about the adults.
So here we are with the adult classes. They're pretty broad in there, and there's going to be some overlap. Young adults, I think, are, if they haven't already, are exploring their sexuality and relationships. like most others, they want to know about sexual pleasure and keeping their body healthy. They are, if they haven't already, they're beginning to make commitments in relationships, and that's an important aspect for discussion. And also finding out boundaries and perhaps boundary violations in relationships. And then you move into the adult. As I said, the adult was created first, and then they added the young adult, and then just recently in 2019 they added the older adult. But you talk about values and diversity. You talk again about commitment and relationships. And again, sexual health. I think in today's world, with all the stuff on the internet and the miscellaneous Twitter and chat rooms, there's misinformation out there. So this is an opportunity to get accurate information. And then we move into the older adult, which they sort of assume is 50 and older. They want to spend some time talking about the attitudes toward aging, and still being a sexual being is important. Again, relationships, and again, there are times when you're older, in particular, that you might start dating again, and you might not know how to protect yourself and find a healthy partner. So that's pretty critical. It's an opportunity to enjoy life-affirming sexual behavior instead of just trying to find your own way. And of course, the sharing is a valuable part of that. I think that's all for that.
All right, so we've reached that end of OWL with the older adults program. And you might be wondering, what is next? Well, coming soon to a church near you, we hope to get some more folks trained as facilitators. And it is an interview process. There are options right now for online training. There's the possibility, I'm looking at my co-conspirators here, possibility of an in-person. They do exist in the country. They're just a little sparse on the West Coast right now. And it is a volunteer position with a commitment to teach for more than just one round of OWLs. So we're in the process of kind of gathering some more volunteers together because we're pretty hopeful about offering a K1 OWL in the spring, tentatively scheduled for Sunday afternoons in February and March. At this point, that's kind of the age group where we're seeing kind of a critical mass of kids who would benefit from OWL. And we've got a host facility right here at UUCS. And while the children are in their OWL sessions, we would host a concurrent parent discussion group that would be optional. You could also drop off your kids and go run to the grocery store if that's what you needed, but you would also be welcome to stay and participate in a lightly facilitated parent discussion group. It would be an online registration process, kind of first registered, first enrolled. And so we're very optimistic about that. And if you're here tonight, it means we have your email somewhere. And you'll learn more once we've got specific details about dates. And as we get more facilitators trained and are able to offer OWL for other age groups, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, and any of those 3 adult segments. Anything else, Phyllis or Marianne, specific to facilitation in K1? Okay. Perfect. Well, that concludes our formal presentation that will be streamed on YouTube. Thank you, YouTubers. I know I don't have to use the microphone. And you are welcome to leave if you need to leave. Grab some more food if you're still hungry. If the children